morning and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. We are live. Today is May 12th, 2023. And today is also Friday. Bender, how are you doing on this Friday, buddy?
I'm good. I'm ready for the week to be over.
Yeah.
Ready for the weekend to start. This is the last weekend that I have before all the officialities happen with our house going on the market. So
Well, there you go. Godspeed.
finish getting stuff ready.
Godspeed. All right. So the mortgage rates have come down. I was reading that this morning and kind of looking at that. It looks like a couple of more blips down on the 30-year, which is interesting considering everything that everybody's talking about. But aside from that, let's get into some quick housekeeping. Last night after hours, we had a little bit of flow come in on SPY. I want to cover that real quick. They were, it looked as if they were hitting the July 392 puts. I think July 21, 392 puts. OI jumped substantially from like 6,000 to over 24,000 when I checked this morning. So there is some activity on that line. Also have to keep in mind that that area in through there, that piece of time is going to be right smack in the middle of VR season. So take it for what it's worth. I think it's worth it if you're watching options flow just to see what they're doing with that area between 390 and 395, or really 390 and 400 in that same period of time, whether or not they're tacking on in that area, taking off. Maybe we start seeing some call writing, that kind of stuff. Just knowing that those are there, while I don't believe that they are immediately actionable, I think it's something that you just watch and wait for some type of supporting flow to come in through there. From a news standpoint, really not a whole lot. Everything is kind of hinging around this overall concept. And this is more macro as opposed to individuals, but this overall thought that the debt ceiling could be chaotic and a real problem. And the overall feel from the majority of people is they're not going to start taking it seriously until the markets fall over on their face, right? So that's what they need. They need the markets to fall over in the face to take it seriously, and then they'll get to the table and make something happen. We'll see. It's a game of chicken every single time debt ceiling comes up, and every single time it is taken care of in the ninth hour, if you will. But we're right in this little zone of time to where these cats want to play chicken. One of the things that I did want to do a little bit because it's been so hot. Let me see if I can be proficient in sharing my screen. Yeah, I think I did it. Okay, so we're looking here. This is the black box platform, which we all use for the most part. This is the SMH. We all know that AI has been hot, and SMH and the components of the SMH are basically going to stimulate that new revolution. But this is a daily chart that we're sitting here looking at on the SMH. As you can see, it's had a really nice run. But one could, depending on how you want to fix your eyes, you can almost see a head and shoulders forming out there on the SMH on the daily. You have the 200 sitting all the way down here about 112, which it is pretty well removed off of that. The line that I'm kind of looking at more so than anything else, and I'll flash over to SPY real quick and show you why, is a 377 that's running right in through here at 121. So let's keep in mind that 377 walking right through there at 121 flat. I think a break below that becomes very problematic for that sector, considering that they're running off of hopes and prayers moving forward for the most part when it comes to AI. The question is how much rev and how much anything else can you actually bake into something that is relatively unknown? Some of these companies have grown exponentially in market cap just based off of a headline and hopes and prayers. Eventually, you have to prove that out. So this area, this 121 running through here on SMH is an area of action that I'm looking at. A bounce off of that area, I'm going to buy, because what we've seen over the last few months is you can see, okay, that could be the forming of a head and shoulders. Ultimately, these wibble wobble out, and you have a massive bull flag that is just shredding to the upside when everybody's trying to pile in and short this right shoulder. Something to keep in mind there for sure. The reason why I want to show this is I want to flip back over and look at SPY. See the three, this is a daily also. You see, no, that's not. That is not. Why'd you do that? Okay, 377 here. As you can see on the daily, 377 has been very, very, actually, why does it look different on here? All right, we're going to scratch this because apparently I don't know what the hell that I'm doing. The 377 on the daily, when I was looking back on my other charts on Fidelity, was basically we have hit that line multiple times over the last several months, going all the way back to, I believe, January, right in through there. We hit that level and we come back down. And I now know why, because the study is not on. So we'll have to go back to, you're just going to have to take my word for it regarding SPY and that 377. It's been an area that we've seen these pullbacks, we've seen these drawdowns. And again, if you're looking at SPY on the daily, you can once again see the makings of a head and shoulders coming in through here. This is not to say that there is massive doom and gloom. This is not to say anything other than flow is going to tell us what's going on. So SMH has led the story in a lot of ways with semis making the big push. I expect that to basically be the tell moving forward. Now, there's a question that can happen in through here. Do they sell down tech to catch up with everything else that's going on within the Dow and the Russell? Do they do that? Or do they catch those sectors up? Do we get a bounce on the Russell? Do we get a bounce on the Dow? Do we get a move back into banks? That's the question. Whether or not it's just going to be a rotation back, or whether or not we're looking at what we kind of saw going into about a year and a half ago, to where the last ones that were taken out were the mega cap. And everybody can acknowledge that mega cap is a very, very crowded trade at this point. For me, there is nothing extremely actionable for me to be like, you know what, I need to get short 3, 6, months out, much less 3 days out. There's nothing there for me yet within the flow. But we are extended. Economic data is average at best. Let's see where we go. This being said, Bender. And Bender is the one who has real charts and knows exactly what he's doing. So we're going to go ahead and pass the ball to him and see what he has going on.
Good morning. Yeah, I actually pulled up the 377 on the SPY daily. I'm going to show that here. Let's see. You guys should be able to see my chart. Here's SPY. There's the 377 on the daily that you're talking about.
Yeah. And you can see that arc as far as how it's, it's like it comes up, it nibbles it, and there you have it. And we played all around it yesterday. It's like we were sitting there just jumping, playing, was it Frogger, going back and forth on that line all day yesterday. So we'll see how the week closes.
Yeah, we'll see how the week closes. Okay. Here's a 15-minute chart. This is kind of what I'm looking at. This red shaded box here, you can see that was we had talked about that being a previous fair value gap. You can see it when I zoom in. You can kind of see it in here, right in that area. So we came up and touched that on Wednesday, right into that area, and came all the way down to this fair value gap here that was left behind last Friday. Came right down into that. So this is sort of the range that we're operating in currently. There are some old new week opening gaps in here that we've been talking about. But this is kind of the area that we're working in. So now that we've gone up and filled that, came down and we filled in here, it's like, okay, what's next? Well, we're right back in here, in the 4150s. I've got the 4148 line down here, which happens to be pretty close. Zoom in, all right? Yeah, 4148 to this little pull and bounce that we got. That was late last night. So, we're still stuck right in here around the this 4150 range. So, kind of the way that I'm approaching the day is that I want to see us. either get above 4164.5, which was this high from 5 a.m. Eastern. I want to see us get above that. Then we can look at this 4168.25. But really, the way that I see it is if we move up over this 4164.5, I would be keep in mind that you've got this, early morning high right up here, 4168.25. We get above that, I don't see a reason why it's going to come back into this red shaded box just to reject again, right? We put in a lower or a higher low. So if it's going to make that move, then I would be looking up here at 4191.5. Now, if we are going to see weakness, the first level I'll be looking at 4148.5, right? If we get below that, you can see here on the 15-minute, there's not any unfilled gaps in here, right? This was balanced, and we could see it was balanced based on how slow it was moving yesterday. So that kind of would, lead me to think that if we get below 41.48 and we don't pull one of those, wick one or two ticks below it and pull back up, if we get below it and it becomes resistance, I would immediately be thinking that, okay, we're probably coming back down at least to this 41.24 half. You got this big wick right here. You'd find the midpoint of that wick, 41.30 or so. I would think it's at least coming down into that area. And if it gets below that, then you got 41.1175, which was that low from Wednesday. But again, that filled this in. So we've already done that, been there, done that, right? If it gets below that, then I'm not sure there's a whole lot that stops it, probably goes and tests 4,100 at that point. I don't think there's a whole lot in between, this and even 40.85 down here. That's kind of the way that I'm approaching the day, kind of how I'm looking at it. Really anything in between 41.64 half and this 41.48 level, you got about 20 handles in there. Really anything in between there is what Hells would call masturbatory.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, but it's interesting that you started off by saying that you wouldn't necessarily see a point in retesting that above area. And the majority of the storytelling this morning could be pointing to the down. Am I interpreting that properly?
No.
If we're playing
my point
odds?
My point was just that I don't see us going back to this area unless the plan is to move through it, right? Because we've already been there. This has already been filled in. So it wouldn't make sense to me to go back into it if we're not going to get through it. Doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen, but it's like that business has been done.
Got it.
In my mind.
Very good.
And same thing for down here.
All right. You have anything else?
No.
Nope. All right, Sonny, what you got, man?
Morning, everyone. I'll start off with upgrades again this morning. Not much seeing in there. Airlines saw an upgrade on MESA by Raymond James. And there's an NTR, so that's also Nutrien is also play for fertilizers and things. So they've been upgrading MOS, CF, and now NTR. Definitely a sector I've been watching for the past week or so. Downgrades, they're coming after streaming media, online companies. Fox 8 got a downgrade. Disney got another downgrade, and PayPal also was downgraded this morning. A couple of things I'm excited about was, SoFi, Truist initiated it with a buy. So joy for the Roadhouse. PanW is another one. Capital One initiated it as overweight. I had pointed this one out yesterday. There was some flow coming in, bullish flow, and then they were starting to hit it with the dark pool. So I'll be watching this today. On the news side, AU. So they said they're gonna do their primary listing to the New York Stock Exchange, moving out of South Africa, and delist from the Australian Stock Exchange market. It has been getting some dark pull. I don't know if this will move it, give it any movement or not, but definitely found it interesting. Tesla, interesting headline, the 1.1 million car recall. But this is the first time I've noticed when they said recall that the fix would be applied on air. I don't remember them seeing, talking about whenever there was a recall, it was just like recall and never talk about how most of the fixes on Tesla are on air.
Right, because like a recall would insinuate that you have to bring your car in for somebody to work on it. That's we're recalling the vehicles.
Yep.
Hey, we're going to give you a software update. Just look out for it.
Yeah, so that's definitely a shift in coverage, when it comes to Tesla recalls. Now, let's see if they continue with it. Shanghai also, there was a bit of a news. Shanghai will further deepen cooperation with Tesla to promote autonomous driving and robotics. Seen as positive, I think. This, I think, again, this is one of those news articles that's coming out like openly backing Tesla for autonomous driving. Usually they push their own, Neo, Li, XPEV, those brands they've been pushing lately. Walgreens revealed that they've sold their stock in ABC. So they got an influx of $650 million in cash. They still have about 15% stake. And ABC is a drug wholesale company that Walgreens uses. Dark pools. Second. Apple had a little decent dark pool, 2.5% of its average volume, 173.75. Old is therapeutics, Bioname. This one has been getting a lot of dark pool the last 2 weeks. And yesterday was quite a big one, 4.4 million shares, almost 200% of its 30-day average volume at 1168. And the Google news, they'll be talking about the AI and everything. So just a word of caution, their AI that they're implementing is only allowed in the US. It's not being implemented in Europe or Canada. So that kind of limits the scope of whatever they talked about.
And I'm sure that's regulatory reasons why.
Yep. Yeah, Europe is very strict about this. I think 2 weeks ago we talked about how they went after ChatGPT and everything. Mm-hmm. So I think Google had to clarify that, it's not for European or Canadian markets yet.
Very nice. All right, man. You got anything else? That's it.
No, that's all. Thank you.
Stonkington, Paige and Stonkington.
Hello, Dr. Stonkington in the building. Let's get this going here. I shall share, and we can look at charts and suches and whatnots. There we go. I get these quotes going again. Here is one I liked. We can start with that. Marie Curie, a physicist, chemist, says, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less." We're going to understand this flow, understand these markets. If I can do this shit. All right. Let's start with the Russell. We tried to break out of this falling setup here and starting to get more of like this megaphone look to it than just a straight falling channel. But we rejected. We tried to overshoot, rejected this order block line. So now was watching this little fair value gap on an hourly chart. You can see it pretty good right there, but they just filled it in. So if we have to go down, I'll be watching the reaction to this order block line right here, 170.54, and so we'll see. I mean, the flow this week into like the KRE, they hit the DPST, couple little upside calls, but it's like kind of listening, for the bigger picture on banks. It's like, yeah, they're backed up, but like it's still not a great narrative over there. The big banks don't look super hot. The flow hasn't been great on the big banks. So it's just going to kind of be like a wait and see. I did see some interesting activity in the I posted the dark pools in the room. The emerging markets ETF had some activity. 28% average 30-day at 39.01. So we'll see.
It's interesting you bring that up, Stonkington, because there has been several headlines and little stories of the past couple of weeks that the outflows from U.S. equities are apparent. Like there are outflows going on, and they're moving into Japan, in China. That's where they're replacing their money. But it's interesting that you bring that up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that is an interesting one. So then if we think, all right, well, if the if other countries are thinking, ooh, US, you're looking kind of sketchy, then what would happen with the dollar here? And I haven't been watching it because we had that run of time where we're like, the dollar looks like shit, or the dollar is just not being reactive. But it's like, okay, if other countries are going to be, looking to peel off, or looking as the dollar potentially being weak, then maybe we could see some pullback here, and then I guess we can kind of see this rising setup here coming into this. Looks like a pretty important resistance line right there that it went down off of. So it's an interesting take. Definitely going to be keeping an eye on that EEM. So we'll see what we get there. Let's see. So that was the Russell. Let's look at the NQ. So, been looking just strictly based on charts, just kind of was keeping this bullish feeling, and start to see this kind of thing build out in the NQ, which this could just be like a massive rising wedge, right? So we have this order block line. If we're going to pull back, I'm going to be watching, see what they do with this. Gold boxes are going to be a daily fair value gap. So click over and see between this candle and that one. And then left some stuff to fill in. Another daily fair value gap way down here. You can see that one really clearly. But yeah, I mean, it's like big tech's leading the charge, but how long can that sustain? So this will be kind of what I'm looking for on the NQ. This trend line keeps showing its importance. Maybe we continue to reject off the top of it, but if we're going to be pulling back and be looking, we fill in this fair value gap, see what we do against this trend line. So that's what we got on the NQ. Sonny mentioned Tesla. Good old Elon, always got something to talk about with his swappings and stuff. So this is kind of what I had as the watch list overnight, and we continued to move up overnight, right up into this old fib that I had, 176.20. This blue box is all that's left of the last ER gap. You can see, obviously, this is a daily, so we've since overnight pulled up into this area. So this is all that's left on that earnings gap, basically. So what I would do in this situation would just be to swap this to the put trigger. So this would be 174.50. Would be looking to take Tesla short. I mean, flow is bullish as fuck. So we'll watch, specifically for today.
Let's clarify that. It was bullish for today, with top side calls coming in at 177.50. Still a strong amount of 170 put sitting on it, but 177.50 was
177.50. Okay, so we're not there yet. We got a little bit room. I saw it pretty clearly on an hourly. We got this triple bottom right there. So that kind of worked out. So yeah, we'll see if they push it up into that. I mean, filling the daily gap would be 177.70. So yeah, we'll just kind of keep an eye on the flow, see what they do with it. So there's Tesla. The other one for today was going to be Apple, and Apple. This is, I since I've been liking trading and watching the NQ, I'm like, well, you got to watch Apple. So you can see how this is this dark pool that we've been talking about all week. 173.57, a lot of money sitting right there, and we're sitting right on top of it. So I'd be looking for that to hold if we're going to pull back. Looking for this other dark pool here, 172.65, and then above, be looking at 174.20 for continued upside on Apple. And that is all I've got.
All right, very good. A couple of things to note. So we haven't seen a lot of Apple flow because dividend is today. So it'll be interesting to see how that flow comes in and plays going into next week. Certain flow that I'm looking at. Obviously, I mentioned the Tesla 177.50 calls and 170 puts. I want to see what that battle line is there. Not only this week for today expiration, but into next week. Also, we'll be watching Meta flow. They came in and hit the 235 puts pretty hard yesterday. It's basically up a little bit on the morning, but it's playing right around that same little area. So I'll be curious to watch that. From a volatility standpoint, UBXY has been playing in this little range in between where we are here now, all the way up to about 370, 380. I'm going to be watching if it can make a move up and over 350. It's going to magnet towards 380 pretty quickly. So just being aware of that and knowing these lines is always helpful to me. The dollar is really interesting that you posted up because while it's up against resistance like that, it's also very close to breaking out at the same time, right? Because that's what that means ultimately. When you start running into those levels of resistance, and the dollar slowly and quietly has been crawling up. So that's going to be kind of where my eyes are set a little bit. We talked about semis at the beginning. The next big catalyst for semis is going to be NVIDIA ER, and I think we're still a couple of weeks away from that. So it cooling and pulling kind of makes a little bit of sense. It hit the top of its channel, I believe, earlier in the week. That it's been in this risingest wedge that pretty much every tech ticker is on right now. So that sector will be on watch for me also. That's all I got. Fellas, you got anything else?
Yeah, I just want to give a reminder. So the Tesla shareholder meeting is on May 16th. We may see some flow for that.
Smart. Very good. All right, guys. It's Friday. Number one rule Friday. Don't screw up. Make sure you go into the weekend smiling and not frowning and angry. And the only person that can control that is yourself. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.